time to have a conversation with your kids about proper valve train adjustments.
Howdy my friends, and welcome to the channel today. I'm Luke, Thunderhead289 here on YouTube. And today we're just going to go through how to set a valve train preload. I run a little Facebook page, Thunderhead289 Carbon Engine Tech and Tune Forum. And there's been some questions recently about how to do this correctly. And there's a lot of different methodologies out there. So what we're going to do today is show you a way that no matter what engine you're dealing with, you know, be it a Briggs & Stratton engine, I guess, all the way up to, you know, a car engine like this methodology works for doing any of those as far as the valve train is concerned. So with that, let's jump right in. So today, since I've made this video a few times over throughout the years, it's been, I don't know, 3 or 4 years since I've gone through this with you guys. You know, I decided, I don't know, our safety coordinator here is actually going to go through and do this instead of me today. And I don't know.
Hello. If I can do it, anyone can do it, because I'm a woman. And I'm safety. I dropped it.
So, how's it going for you?
I'm gonna run you over with your own car again.
We've already done that today.
I asked to do this, and we get all the way out here, and then you ask me, like, is it okay if your hands get dirty? Nope. That's where I draw the line. Over, done. I'm gonna leave you here.
So, the safety gal has the valve cover off there, and obviously under the valve cover, we have our rocker arms and our valve train. Now, the thing about hydraulic lifters is they're very specific about their preload. If you have too much preload, they can bleed down really bad at high RPM, or in some cases, they can actually hang valves open and some other weird stuff. On the other end of the spectrum, if they're too loose, you have a lot of clatter, and it just sounds horrible under your hood. So anyway, we're gonna do it right today.
Have you tried talking to your children about camshafts?
No.
If you take a look at the cam, you can see that this is the intake and this is the exhaust for cylinder 1. So when doing your valve train adjustment, you want to do your adjustment on the base circle. And a good indicator that you're doing that is that the opposing valve will be at max lift.
So while safety over here is turning the engine over, what we're gonna do is just focus on cylinder 1 at this point. And like I said, you can do this on any engine, doesn't matter what engine you're working on. And basically what we're gonna do is when we're at max lift on one of our valves here, we're going to adjust the opposing valve because we want to be on the base circle of the cam.
I'm a small woman. I don't deserve this. I have rights nowadays, I think.
As long as you're being safe.
Fuck. Sorry, buddy.
There we go.
Good.
All right, so I think you're good at this moment. We're at the max lift on our exhaust valve, and you'll notice that when it's at max lift, you'll keep turning the crank, and actually that valve will dwell for a moment as it's at max lift before it rolls over center. So at this point, with our one valve here fully open, we can make our adjustment on, what is this here? Our intake valve on cylinder 1.
So this particular engine has 3/8 rocker studs, and obviously they're finely threaded, which means you have a TPI of 24. So we can look at the math on how the 24 threads per inch comes into play with our valve train adjustment. Let's do some math. Since these rocker studs are 3/8 by 24, and again 24 is your threads per inch, if you do 1 over your TPI, which again is 24, you're going to get the amount of preload for 1 full revolution.
That's pretty close. Maybe we should get the calculator out. Well, you're pretty close. 0.041. 40 thousandths. Oh no. Now with hydraulic lifters, really what we're going for here is somewhere between 20 to 50 thousandths preload. Usually closer to 50 thousandths is safer. It just depends on what you're doing. So I think on this engine here, since it's just a typical driver, we're going to go just 1 full rotation on these, being that they're 3/8. Of course, the big thing is you want them all to be the same, and we should be good to go from there.
You said safer in your video. Live and die by this.
So just really quick here, one thing when installing your rocker arms is you want to make sure the flat part of your roller fulcrum is facing up where your rocker nut is going to come down on it. I've seen people actually install these backwards, and when I bought this engine it did have a few like this, so that was pretty interesting. So that's just something you always want to be sure of. What are you writing?
What they don't tell you is that OSHA is an acronym. It stands for awesome. That's what they teach me at OSHA school. See?
I don't
know if you knew, but it's an acronym.
I don't know if that's how you spell awesome.
Well, I'm not an English major.
So making your valve train adjustment is really not that hard. Now a big pitfall is the point right before most folks make their adjustment. What you're looking for is you want to set your valve train first to 0 lash. So what our safety gal here is doing is she's rotating the push rod and turning the rocker nut, and it's the first moment when you feel drag on that push rod, that's when you know you're at 0 lash. And then once you're at that point, then you can go ahead and make your adjustment. Now these locking rocker nuts are very easy because you can feel right at that first moment. And so if you don't have locking rocker nuts, if they're the type that are tight the whole way that you turn them, you know, you really want to pay close attention to that push rod, because if you don't, you know, you can over torque it and then you're going to have some anomalous valve train adjustment. So it's at the very moment that you feel drag on the push rod, you know you're at 0 lash.
If you remember our threads per inch discussion earlier, you'll remember that one full revolution will give us 40 thousandths preload, and that's plenty of preload. The reason that we use one full revolution as our unit is because that's easy to visualize and replicate.
So here we go. Gonna make a full rotation. Normally I use a socket wrench, but just so you guys can visualize it here, and we don't have to take it off and put it back on or whatever, as this is kind of a tight engine bay in this Maverick. Alright, there we go. So we're square again, and that's roughly 40 thousandths. And again, of course, you'd want to do every valve the exact same way. So at this point, we can, since these are locking rocker nuts, we can go ahead and set our locker, and we know that we have good preload on our intake valve of cylinder 1.
So I'm going to set my locker on my locking rocker nut. So I'm taking my 9/16 Freedom Units wrench here, because when you use the devil's measurements, you always come up short. We're going to put this on our rocker nut and make sure that we don't rotate it at all, because then we're altering the preload. So now we're going to take our Allen wrench and hold our 9/16 steady and seat the locker. So I want to make sure that the locker is actually tight, and I have wiener arms and Thunderboy didn't bring any longer Allen wrenches, so I'm just going to stick this extension on here and use it for leverage. Now that our cylinder 1 intake valve is properly preloaded, we can work through the rest of the engine this way to ensure that our valve train adjustment is done correctly.
Alright, so the car is all reassembled and everything's good to go. The steering column is complete junk in this car, so you have to officially start from under the hood at this point. You wanna give it a go. Ta-da!